All right, that was awesome.
And everybody, please welcome Mark Anthony Garrett.
Wow, wow, wow. Thank you so much. How's my audio? Can everybody hear me? Or can somebody give me an indication?
Yep, we can hear you.
Fantastic. Well, first and foremost, let me say this. I am extremely honored to be here. But before I start, I have to say something. Robert Youngerman, you are a rock star, bro. I'm just saying, because the way you're kind of anchoring this thing is phenomenal. Your energy is contagious. You're doing a great job. Thank you so much, man. You just inspire me. But I am just thoroughly excited to be here today, because when I think about what it is you stand for, I know that you stand for excellence. I know that you stand for diligence, and you stand for making sure that every child that you interact with never forgets that you are here to serve them, never forgets that you're here to inspire them, never forgetting that the essence of what it is you do is to help them reach the apex of their greatness, not only them, but their family as well. And what's most exciting for me is because I am a former Head Start child. And I remember Head Start very vaguely, but what I do remember, ladies and gentlemen, is the simple fact that I remember getting up in the morning and my father would get me ready, and I would get on this little bus, and I would go to a facility, and I remember circle time. And I remember Cheerios, and I hate Cheerios, but they give us Cheerios, you know. But we would eat these Cheerios, and then I remember nap time. But the circle time that we would have, I can't tell you per se what was said, but what I remember, even though I was 3 at the time, that I remember how you made me feel. I remember the feelings of emotion. I remember the feelings of love. I remember the embraces and the hugs. So I guess I say that to say this, that you're more than enough. And I want to also say to Miss Powers, first of all, congratulations. But I also want to let you know, Miss Powers, that there's nothing to be afraid of, because you are surrounded by a family of like-minded, loving, caring individuals who I believe part of their purpose in life is to serve. So you're in good hands. You're going to be just fine. But I just want to say congratulations to you. But young lady, you have nothing to fear. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to share my screen, and there's a little lag here, so bear with me. But I'll just keep on talking as we do this. But I tell you what, I am just thoroughly excited. And as I watched the videos that you were doing, I became very emotional. I became emotional because as I watched those videos, I saw the face of the children. And I do a lot of work in child welfare. I do a lot of work around the nation with children. And so children are they have a special place in my heart. So I just want you to know that as I watch those videos, that it inspired me. And I want to let everybody who is watching today know this, that I'm proud of you too. Because what you have done during this pandemic has been nothing but amazing. I mean, you have not let the excellence stop. You have not let your mission stop. You have continued to push forward, and that is something I have to commend you for. So thank you so much for what you do. Thank you so much for being encouraged, but thank you for your service. Because without people like you, there would be no kids like me who grew up, and I hope that my life has turned out okay, but I know that my first start was as a Head Start child. And I am having some difficulty with the transition here. So I don't know if someone can share my screen for me, because it's not working on my end. Or can you guys see my screen? No? Can someone give me an indication?
I can see it, but it's still in the preview mode. Go to the slideshow and start that.
Gotcha. Okay, I just want to make sure that you can see it. Okay, and there's a little lag. Can you still see it?
Can still see it.
Can still see it.
Okay, fantastic. Well, it's kind of delaying on my end, but I'll keep on talking until it pops up. But as I said before, here we go. All right. Okay. And now there's the swirl of death, but it'll do what it does, so whatever. But nonetheless, here's what I know. Even with the lag in technology, even with the coronavirus, the thing about us is that you have not let this stop you. As a matter of fact, you have been even more encouraged because of the pandemic, because of what you stand for. And so I wanted this message today to be about the power of a hero. How do you impact lives through service excellence, leadership, dynamic connections, and outstanding teamwork? And the reason that I chose hero is that I believe that each of you are a hero. I believe that you're a hero in your own right, because when you decided to work in this capacity, whether you are a teacher or an administrator, whether you're in food service, whatever, this is for everybody. When you made the decision to step into this world of excellence and step into this world of Head Start, you became a hero automatically just by your choice. And so, you know, I'm just very, very excited about that. But more importantly, I'm excited about the team. Now, let me tell you something about this team here. First of all, we were on a Skype yesterday, so here's a screenshot of that. And they were talking about, well, we've never done this before, and how are we going to get this done? But here's what I know through all of that. No matter what they said, they still got it done. I didn't hear anybody complaining. I didn't hear anybody saying, oh my God, what are we going to do? Can this really work? All I heard was, we're going to make it work. It may not be perfect, but we're going to do it anyway. That's a difference of leadership. That's a difference in perception. That's a different way of thinking. It's a different consciousness. And when you have a different consciousness when it comes to your leadership team, it is impossible for the whole organization not to thrive. So to Travis, Berto, Wendy, Maria, Scott, Hope, Robert, Sean, John, Sharon, and Dave Chesney was not there, but I met Dave Chesney last year when I spoke at the Governor's Resiliency Conference, and she's part of the reason that I'm here, so I had to throw her in there as well. But more importantly, the thing about this team is that their way of thinking is, let's get it done, let's not worry about the obstacles. That's a whole different stratosphere when we talk about people who, what I call, have satellite thinking. They think beyond the situation because they understand that the purpose behind what you do is bigger than any obstacle, whether it's COVID, whether it's funding cuts. For some reason, since 1965, you guys have found a way to get it done, and that has to be commended. But also, you know, John Kinzel said something that really inspired me, and John, I want to thank you for this. He says that you all have what it takes. Everything inside of you to be great, to continue to inspire children, is already inside of you. It's locked up inside of you. Everything you need to reach the apex of your greatness in your personal life, in your business life, in your work life, it's all in there. And back in my day, I'm 51, so I'm aging myself here. But back in my day when I was a kid, there was a TV commercial that came on, and it was a ragu commercial, spaghetti sauce. And the tagline was, like ragu, it's in there, which means that everything you have is inside of you. And I want you guys to understand that sometimes it's going to be arduous and sometimes it's going to be difficult, but nonetheless, you do it anyway. And that's what I love about the Head Start organization and what you guys are doing. I want you to understand also is that the very best is yet to come. That everything that we are going through, whether it's pandemic, whether it's our own personal thing, that on the other side of that, just like after every storm, the sun comes out, the best is yet to come. So one of the biggest pieces of advice that I could give to all of you who are serving our children is focus on what you want. Don't focus on the pandemic. Don't focus on what you don't have. Focus on what you want, because I personally believe that whatever you want most in life, you got to give it away. You want more love? Give it away. You want more compassion? Give it away. You want more money? Give it away, for those who believe that. But here's the thing. What I do know also is that the best is just right around the corner. And sometimes in life, as we're pushing forward, we stop right before the blessing. We stop right before we reach that point we're trying to reach. We stop because of fear. Because of just situations and things being arduous, but keep pushing, because right around the corner, ladies and gentlemen, I personally believe that the best is yet to come. Now, I threw this in here as we were going through the presentation, and I kept on hearing this word hope. I've heard people say hope all morning. And so I wanted to kind of tell you that's what we do. That's what we provide. We provide hope. But in my opinion, there are two meanings to hope, H-O-P-E. The first meaning is, what is it that we do within our organization? We help other people excel. That's what we do. We take people, and we take children, we take families, and we help them excel. So that's the first meaning, helping other people excel. And then the other one is helping one person every day. Every day that we come into work, whether it's in our own home or we're working remotely or if it's physical, every day if we can help one person, whether it's someone in our life, in our personal family, whether it's the children, if we can help one person every day, that's what hope is. And so I just wanted to kind of throw that out there and to let you know that you are bringing hope. And for a kid like me who went through a lot of crazy things in my life, I believe personally, this is on my own personal belief, I don't know what they taught me in that Head Start classroom, but I do believe that at the beginning of a child's life, the influences and the impressions that is bestowed upon him or her resonates in the emotional, what I call the emotional DNA. It is that memory that is always there, it always lingers. It goes into our conscious mind, and then it goes down to the subconscious, and then even to our super subconscious. And I personally believe that whatever those Head Start wonderful individuals did for me, that it has resonated throughout my whole life. Because I'm sure they taught me how to read. They taught me to do a bunch of different things, and how to have manners and to play well, and just how to be a good little boy. And so I appreciate that. And so I do believe that you have also given me hope as well. So, oops, sorry about that. So what do you guys believe? You know, as I went and searched your organization, I was really inspired by your mission and your vision. Your mission says this, says that we deliver exceptional, not unexceptional, but exceptional early childhood education, and develop compassionate partnerships with families to support them in realizing their hopes. Oh, we just talked about hope, did we not? And dreams. See, these children have hopes and dreams. Even though they're young, they want to grow up and be something successful. Their parents want to be something successful. And to know that you have a mission that helps to propel that is an amazing thing. And then your vision. Now watch this. It says Miami Valley Child Development Centers Incorporated achieves our mission by providing quality environments and experiences. Remember when I talked about earlier about the experience I had with Head Start? I don't remember what they said, but I know how the experience made me feel 50-some years later. That support active learning, which empowers individuals to seize opportunities for improving their conditions in life. Listen, the mission and vision are crucial. What I would suggest is go and read these. Let these become part of your DNA. Never forget what you stand for. Never forget why you do what you do. Keep pushing, keep understanding that you're here for something bigger. But the vision and the mission, I think are absolutely exceptional. So because of that, I'm so excited. And I found this picture and I said, you know what? I don't know about you, but I'm really excited, and it's hot in here because I'm kind of closed in, so forgive me for doing that. But nonetheless, I am excited because I'm around people who have been designed to inspire children to reach the apex of their greatness. And I think that's absolutely incredible. So what I'm going to ask you guys to do for me is I'm going to ask you to take a leap of faith. And I want you to, for a moment, to think about something. I want you to, as you start taking this leap of faith, I want you to close your eyes just for a moment. And I want you to listen to the question I'm going to ask you. And I want you to really think about this. And here's my question. What if, just what if everybody that's here today, under the sound of my voice, what if you all ceased to exist? What if you were never born? What if you weren't here? And the reason I wanted to ask you that question is because that when you begin to think about your purpose and your existence, I believe that we're here for two reasons. The first reason I think we're here on this planet right now is to understand what is our purpose. And then once we pull out what our purpose is, then it's time for us to serve on purpose, because I think that life is all about service. So this leap of faith that I'm asking you to take is a leap of faith to say, just relax, take a deep breath, and I want you to trust me just for the next few minutes to give you some inspiration, to give you some motivation, but also to give you some validation that your existence on this planet within the organization upon which you serve is crucial. And you know, Dr. Martin Luther King says this about faith. He says, faith is taking the first step even when you don't see the whole staircase. See, what I know about Head Start, what I know about your great organization and the people that serve within it is that you guys are not concerned about what you can't see. What you are concerned about is what you can see, because even though you can't see something, you guys push forward anyway. See, you're one of those organizations that doesn't make excuses. You find a way to get it done because you understand the greater sense of purpose is not just wrapped up in us, but it's wrapped up in the children and the families that we serve, because we are helping children to grow up, to make dreams come true, to help them to believe in themselves, thus also helping them to become greater members of society. See, what we don't understand, what we don't see on that bridge is what the kids are going to turn out to be. But our faith has to be so strong and our belief has to be so strong in what it is that we do and what we are doing that we believe that the children that we serve will grow up and that they will be successful. It's a high belief level. Does that happen all the time? No, sometimes we hear stories of children who fall through the cracks, and those stories are sad. And sometimes we hear stories of children who end up incarcerated, or maybe they end up getting themselves in negative situations that they can't reverse, and that is traumatic. But here's what I know as well, that for every child that we feel may not make it, there are thousands who do. And it doesn't mean that we don't want to support the ones who may fall through the cracks, but we do it because we want to just do the best we can with everything that we have. And though those children who may not make it through to the greater levels, that's okay too, because even those children, we can continue to support them through our belief level, through the due diligence that we understand that we're here for something bigger than ourselves. So that's the first thing I'm going to ask you to do, is just to kind of take this leap of faith and understand that everything that you're doing is working for the greater good for the children that we serve, okay? So now we're going to do a little exercise. I'm going to ask you guys to kind of think outside the box here for a little bit. And thinking outside the box, I want you to think about, what do you want? What do you want this organization to be? How will you serve this organization under this pandemic? Will you operate in fear, or will you be courageous and say the pandemic doesn't define us? The pandemic is just a temporary stepping stone and an opportunity for us to get closer. We have to do it in a different way, but we must never lose that human connection, because the human connections and the relationships upon which we build with the children are the heartbeat of the organization. The greater the relationship with the children and the families, the greater the outcomes. And that's what I want you guys to think about. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put up a box, and I'm going to put up this box. And what I want you to do with this box, here it is. I want you to look directly into the center. So hopefully you can see this on the screen. I want you to focus directly into the center of this box. And I want you to focus directly into the center of the box. And I want you to focus directly into the center of the box. And the more you focus in the center of the box, for some of you, the box will change. It will flip. It will go this way and then that way, this way and then that way, back and forth. Now, for some of you, you may not see it right away, but the more you look into the center of the box, it's like an optical illusion, it will flip. And the moral of this story and this exercise is, when we're going through things in life, whether it's at work, whether it's through this pandemic, we have to look at it from a different set of eyes. And we have to understand that even though we're looking at something, the truth of the matter is that this pandemic doesn't define us. And when you have that shift in your mind, when you have that shift in your consciousness, that's what life is all about. And when the children have it, and those teachers who are in those classrooms who are working with those kids, and some kids you can work with, they give you no trouble, and then some kids give you the business. And you guys know exactly what I'm talking about, right? Some of these kids come in, they have different attitudes, different ways of thinking. It's just a different generation. If you guys haven't been cussed out thoroughly, give it a little time. It's going to happen. It may happen. I mean, you're going to hear everything. Listen, I've heard stories of, it blows my mind, the kind of stories I hear. But even though the arduousness that goes into what it is we do, the blessing and that aha moment when we have that shift in a child's life and we have that connection, that is what it's all about. And that's what we're striving for. So let me read this to you. I believe, ladies and gentlemen, life is all about inspiration. Patanjali says the best. He says that when you are inspired by some great purpose, some extraordinary project, he says that all your thoughts will break their bonds. He says that your mind transcends limitations, your consciousness expands in every direction, and you find yourself in a new, great, and wonderful world. Dormant forces, faculties, and talents become alive, and you discover yourself to be a greater person by far than you ever dreamed yourself to be. When I read that quote, what it reminded me of is that we are here for something bigger. And our project is to save lives. Our project is to enhance lives. So understand this too, ladies and gentlemen, that you are more than just your title. That in fact, you are lifesavers. And that's what we're here to do. We're here to save lives. And so when you begin to understand that, you begin to understand that life is all about connections. It's all about connecting. And when we're able to connect to the heartbeat of a child, to the essence of a child, to a spirit of a child and their family, it's a beautiful thing, because never forget that in everything that we do, It's all about the connection. Once we lose the connection, it's done. It's done. We must never lose that connection and understand that we fight for connections. We fight to keep that connection. We fight to make sure that that child never forgets why we do what we do. Why do you do what you do? Why do you continue to push? Why do you continue to fight? Why do you continue to do this work? It's because of the connection. We must never forget the connection. Now, this picture here is where I'm going to start diving deep into a little bit about my story. This lady right here is the love, she's one of the loves in my life. And I mean that in all good ways. This woman right here, other than my wife and my mother, I love her. I mean, I love her unconditionally because she was one of those individuals that reminded me that I was not a mistake. See, for some of you, you may not realize that I grew up in the foster care system. My mother was 24 years of age when she had me. My mother had some very difficult decisions to make when she had me on the west side of Dayton. And when you know, growing up in the inner city, it was rough in itself. But from what I remember, what they told me was that my mother was 24. She lived in the inner city on the west side of Dayton, and she was having some problems with drugs, self-esteem. So my mother placed me up for adoption, and I went directly into the hands of Montgomery County Children's Services. And I spent the first 7 years of my life in and out of various foster homes. And at the age of 7, I was adopted by the Garretts, and that is how I got my name. Now, my parents were non-traditional, which means that my father was born in 1918, and my mother was born in 1930, and my mother and father were old school. They were old school rules, old school values. That was during a time when children were seen, but not what? That's right, seen but not heard. You know the formula. So it was, you know, during the 70s, it was a different time, but my parents, I think they did the best they could. And even though they were older foster parents who later adopted me, the one thing that I was missing in that relationship, in that family, was the connection. Even though my father loved me, my father was old school. My father was born in 1918. My father was an ex-Marine. My father was not the huggy-feely type of guy. My father wouldn't have watched Lifetime, and he definitely wouldn't have watched Oprah. He was not that guy. My dad was a hard worker. He was a drinker. He was a partier, but he took care of his family, and my dad had a lot of trauma in his life. My mother, same issue. Now, my mother was the floor general. My mother just had a way of being able to do 1,000 things at the same time. But having 7 children, mama did what she had to do. Now, I had 5 brothers and sisters from that were not connected to me that my mother and father had from previous marriages. And then there was me, and then there was another adopted child as well, making a total of 7 of us. But by the time I came into the picture, I was the only one at the house. My brothers and sisters were much older than me, and they had children my age. And so growing up in that environment, I wanted to make sure that I was seen. I wanted to make sure that even though I was adopted, that they saw me, and I just felt that my parents didn't see me. But when I ended up failing the 3rd grade, I was placed in special education, and back in the 70s, that was just a devastating thing to be placed in special ed. But I remember they got together with my parents, and they said, well, you know, Mr. and Mrs. Garrett, there's something really different about your son. He doesn't connect well with other people. Can you give us a little history on your son? And they sat down and kind of ran through the history of me being in foster care and then, you know, being adopted. And I remember as I sat there in that meeting at 8 years old, the counselor stopped my father and said, oh, Mr. Garrett, did you say that you adopted him? And my father said, yes. Did you tell me that he was in foster care? And my father said, yes. And the interesting thing about that is that he looked at my mother and father in their eye, and he said, Mr. Garrett, I hate to tell you this, but because Mark was in foster care, because Mark isn't like other kids, you really shouldn't expect too much from him. And I remember that my mother and father kind of looked at each other, and the only problem with that whole scenario is that my mother and father, they bought the hype. They bought the hype. And from that moment, my life shifted, and I was placed in special education. I remember, as I said in my homeroom classroom that year, we had a split classroom, and by this time, we had moved to a town called Huber Heights, Ohio, which was, I mean, back in the 70s, the Huber homes was just booming. And my father came home, and he came to our little efficiency apartment because we lived in a little project called the Soda Bass. I don't know if you guys from Dayton, if you know what a Soda Bass is, and Hilltop and Arlington Courts. We were in every project you could probably imagine, right? We had little houses when we could, but we were more in the projects. And I remember my father comes home one day, and he says, "I have a surprise for you, Mark Anthony." And he wraps a little bandana around my eyes where I can't see, and we jump into that station wagon that was like 13,000 feet long. You guys remember that with the big wood strip down the side? He puts us in there, put the dog in there. I'm in the back with the dog, and my mom's in the front, my dad's in the front. And I remember we drive for like what seems forever. And then my dad says, "You ready?" And I took off that bandana, and I looked to the right, jumped out the car, and there was a little brick house. It wasn't very big, but it was made out of brick. There was no syringes out. There was no people out selling drugs. You didn't have to worry about getting jumped or robbed or anything like that. And for the first time in my life, as I ran through that house, I felt a sense of peace. I felt that, that this was maybe a turning point in our life. And then this incident happens. And I remember they came down to my homeroom class, and they pulled me out. They took me down to room 315. And 315 were for the kids that nobody wanted. 315 were for those children who were different, who were neglected, who they called retarded, who they said, "Oh, they can't, they're not like other kids, they're different." And we had a room way at the other end of the school. And I remember that I walked down that hallway to that classroom, and tears were coming down my eyes because I didn't want to be labeled like those other kids. I didn't want to be ousted out. But I'd already got embarrassed, and I'm heading down this room, and I remember that my dad had just bought me a brand new pair of Pro Kids. And I'm walking down the hallway, my head's down like this, and the tears are falling, and they're bouncing on the cement, and they're jumping into my Pro Kids. And as I walk down to that classroom, I'm looking in the classroom, and the aide says, "Hey, you wait here." And Miss Ritchie was in the supply closet, and I'm looking in this room, and I don't like what I see, because I see kids that I know. I see kids that I've been mean to, like Russell. See, Russell was another black kid that went to the school. I never played with Russell, didn't even like Russell. And nobody played with Russell. Not the fact that he was black, but the fact that every time Russell would talk, he would stutter. And we called him Stuttering Russell. And then there was Patrick with a prosthetic arm. He had been in foster care. That was my boy. And we just played together. We got along really well. But a week prior, he was on the playground. He got jumped by a couple brothers. I remember I stood there, and I watched them beat this kid. And all these kids joined around. They're like, "Pull it off, pull his arm off." And they pulling on this prosthetic arm until it snapped. And one of the brothers held it up like a trophy. And he threw it over the fence before he kicked Patrick into the ribs. And then I remember that there was this little girl named Jessica. And Jessica, none of the girls would play with her because she didn't smell very well. She walked funny, and she had oily hair, and she had all these lesions all over her body. And Miss Ritchie, she would come into this classroom, and she would come in, and she would kind of inspire us to be better. And I remember on this particular day, as I'm looking in this classroom, I remember seeing Miss Ritchie going in and inspiring kids, but didn't know who she was and never dreamed that I'd be one of those kids sitting in that classroom. And the reason that Jessica smelled bad because her family didn't have running water, and the reason she had lesions all over her body is, see, when her dad would drink his alcohol, she became a human ashtray. And the reason that she walked funny is because her father did things to little 8-year-old girls that grown men should not do. And those were the children that Miss Ritchie served. As I stood there looking into this classroom, thinking my life is going to be turned upside down, the aide comes over and says, "Mark, have a seat." And I'm looking around the room, and wasn't very many kids in there. And I saw a little seat right there in the middle in the third row. So I took a seat there, and nobody said a word. Nobody said anything. You could hear a pin drop. Because we all knew we were different. We all knew that nobody liked us. And we all were wondering, why are we here? But then all of a sudden, something changed. Miss Ritchie, she walked in. And when she walked in, her presence changed the environment of the room. See, energy is everything. And the bigger your energy, the more energy you have, the more you inspire children. Children respond to energy. If you go in there half dead, they're going to respond half dead. You got to be alive. You got to be ready. She walked in there with this thing called enthusiasm. And she walks in the room, and I'm going to try to imitate her the best I can. She walks in and she says, "Hi, children. How are you? So good to see you today. Look at you. Oh, Patrick, you're so beautiful. Hey, Russell. Hey, Jessica, your hair is awesome. And there's little Mark Anthony. Well, children, this year is going to be a little bit different." And she begins to talk to us and tell us that we're going to create a kingdom. And she says that we will call each other sir and ma'am. that we would have this whole level of respect. And then she says something to me that thoroughly shook all of us. She says, oh, outside that door it says 315, and underneath it says special ed, but I teach not special ed children. I only teach children who just happen to be special. And because all of you are here, this is our kingdom, and I now bow before royalty. Well, this is 1977. We know crack cocaine wasn't out there. We know she wasn't a crackhead. We knew she wasn't on drugs. We're just trying to figure out, who is this woman talking to us like this, talking to us like we matter, talking to us like we have purpose, talking to us like our existence was important to her. And it shifted something in all of us. And in my little body, I felt more joy, more energy than I'd ever felt before. And I remember that it was the essence of her presence. And the reason I wanted to tell you that story, ladies and gentlemen, is because your presence is everything. Her presence was life-changing. And if you think that what you do doesn't matter, I'm 51 years old. I'm not supposed to be here. They said I'd be dead by the time I'm 18. They said that I would never be anything successful because I'm an 8th grade dropout, because I was physically, mentally, sexually abused, because I was in gangs and I did a lot of negative things, because my mama was into drugs and prostitution, and because I grew up in foster care, because my real father was never in my life, and my adopted dad was there, but he wasn't, and there was a lot of abuse in the house and all these things. But yet, here I am at 51, because people like you and people like her gave me permission to thrive, and that's an amazing thing. I'm not supposed to be doing this. I'm not supposed to be a speaker. I'm an 8th grade dropout. I lost my adopted mother at 14 to cancer. I was in and out of juvenile jail. Anybody from Dayton, Ohio, if you know where 303 West 2nd Street is, exactly, I was there a lot. That's where the juvenile correctional facility was at that time. They knew me very well. And the reason I tell you this story is to let you know that I'm nothing special. I'm not. But what I do know is that the essence of what you do helped me to be the man I am today from a very early age, because I'm telling you, I personally believe that I received my foundation from Head Start. Though I can't remember any lessons or any of that, I remember a feeling of being welcome. I remember whatever facility I went into, I remember there would be music playing and we'd be dancing. It was a place where I knew that I was cared for and I was loved. It was an amazing thing, and I'm sure that it resonated within my spirit. What you do, it matters. You're more than enough. You're everything to these children. And you're everything to me, because I understand that as I speak to teachers all over the world and train teachers on high levels, low levels, it doesn't matter. All I know is that the aspect of teaching is an amazing thing. But Head Start is different. It's just something special. It's something unique. You have something different, something unique in what it is that you do and what it is that you stand for. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And so for me, you know, working with Miss Ritchie and being inspired by her was really, really, really exciting for me, because at this age, I think here I just turned maybe 12. And in 1977, when I met Miss Ritchie, my father lost his job and we had to move away, and it devastated me. But Miss Ritchie said something to me the day that I left. She said, Mark Anthony, one day you will grow up and you will be significant. One day, little boy, you will grow up and you will change the world. And when I think about that, when I think about just what she did for me and believing in me when I could not believe in myself, it shifted me. It moved me. And if you think for an instant that what you do doesn't matter, you are wrong. Because I'm not supposed to be doing this, not supposed to be here. But here I am, still strong, still standing, still breathing. Because people like you gave me permission to be amazing, permission to thrive, permission to be a strong man, permission to change the world. And I try to do it every day through my actions, through my prayer, through my devotion to serving individuals like you. It's an amazing thing. But what I do know is simply this, that after, well, let me go back here. This was 12. And so Miss Ritchie shifted my whole life. And after I left her presence, you know, from 77 to 1986, it was a whirlwind. Drugs, violence, lost my adopted mother, in and out of juvenile jail, a lot of different things. But after I met her, after I was able to be inspired by her, even through all the things that happened in my life, through all the negative things, I was able to try to figure out what I was supposed to do, my greater sense of purpose. And because of time's sake, I'm going to condense this story, but just stay with me. From 1977 to 1986, as I said before, it was very, very arduous. And from where I started in 77 to where I ended up in 86 was an amazing thing, because I was not supposed to live to 18. See, when crack cocaine hit my neighborhood, either you sold drugs or you tried to stay out the way. And I did a combination of everything. You tried to stay out of the gangs, but I joined the gang for protection. I joined the gang trying to be a part of a family. But through all of the negative things that I experienced, from the gangs to the sexual abuse to the juvenile, what I never forgot was the essence of what that woman said to me in 1977 when she says, "Mark Anthony, I believe in you. Mark Anthony, I love you." See, we are seed sowers. Our job is to sow seeds. We can't control when that seed will manifest. But what we can't control is the seeds that we deposit into the emotional bank accounts of the children and individuals that we serve. And I remember that in 1986, I'm just at a standstill. I'm 18 years old and I'm done. I'm tired. My mother's not there anymore. She had passed away when I was 14. My father had been married to a second wife, which was my adopted mother. And my adopted mother died of brain cancer. My father's first wife died of brain cancer in 1965. So my father checked out emotionally. He became an alcoholic. I became a juvenile delinquent. And I started running the streets and doing negative things. And I remember in July 28th, 1986, I said, you know what? I'm done. It's over. I got to get out of this. I can't make it anymore. I'm tired. So I decided that would end my life. And so I remember that I had a 9mm gun I carried for protection. I remember that I stood in my room and I cocked this thing. And I'm standing there thinking about my whole life, how much of a failure I was, how I didn't make it out of school, how my 8th grade dropout, how I was in the gangs, how I don't have a relationship with my daddy. I had a child at 17 who passed away from being born premature. There was a lot of pressure on me. And then I had people out trying to kill me because I was gang affiliated. Not proud of that, but it was what it was, and it is what it is. It's just the way it is. And I'll say this on a side note. If you got a negative past, sometimes we live in the past when we should be trying to build better futures. I'm not the man I used to be. So people say, Mark, aren't you embarrassed to tell people? Not at all, because I was broken. But because of people like you, I went from broken to unbroken. But on July 28th, as I had that gun and I cocked it, I put it to my head because I was trying to end my life. I just wanted to end it. But every time I put the gun in my head to pull the trigger, ladies and gentlemen, I would hear Miss Ritchie's voice and it would say, breathe. But there's nobody in the room. I mean, it's a bright, sunny day. There's nobody home but me, and Miss Ritchie ain't there. So I'm thinking, I'm tripping, like, what is going on here? And I put the gun in my head again, and she says, breathe, Mark Anthony, breathe. I'm scared to death because there's nobody home. And I got this gun in my hand. I got to end this thing. I got to do it fast, and I got to do it quick, but I don't know what a suicide protocol is. Here, is in the mouth. And I said, I'm just going to do a temple shot and end it. I took a deep breath. And I said, Miss Ritchie, I'm so sorry. And I put the gun to my head to blow my brains out. And when I got the gun right here, something tapped my hand. And I couldn't move. It's July 28th, 1986. I can't move. The sun is beaming through my window, and all of a sudden, the sun starts to fade, and the whole outside goes black. I can see nothing, and then the room goes black, and I'm frozen into spinning animation, and I'm thinking to myself, I know it's not supposed to be like this, and I'm thinking, have I already killed myself? Am I dying? Am I dead? I didn't know. I'm scared to death. And then out of my window, I see this little bright light that starts coming, getting bigger, bigger, and bigger, and then all of a sudden, I see 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, like a movie, and then boom! Just like earlier when the movies were playing, I saw a movie. But the movie that I saw was me back in the 3rd grade at 8 years old, and I'm having what is called a spaz day. And my spaz days were when I would just go off, because I wasn't a very smart kid. And I would get very frustrated doing my math, or as they call it, arithmetic back in those days. And I'm trying to carry the one, I'm breaking my pencils, I'm flipping tables. And I can see this in my vision. I'm flipping tables, I'm just going out of control. And then all of a sudden in this vision, Miss Ritchie, she grabs me lovingly. And as I'm kicking and frailing, she walks me out of the room, takes me into the hallway. She grabs me, slides down the wall, puts me on her lap, and she starts rocking me and rubbing my back. And the whole time she's rocking and rubbing my back, she's saying, breathe, Mark Anthony, breathe. It's going to be okay. Because I would hyperventilate. She would calm me. And then that vision, I had an epiphany. I had an epiphany that says that I don't know how I'm going to control the rest of my life, but if I can control my inhale and my exhale, maybe I got a shot. And in that moment, this poem came to me by Robert Frost that said simply this. It said, somewhere ages hence, two roads diverge in a wood, and I have chose the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. And in that moment, I had to make a decision. And the decision was, do I let my life destroy me? Or do I take this opportunity and use it as a stepping stone to reach the greatness that Miss Ritchie saw in me? Because I didn't see it in myself. But she saw something in me that I couldn't see. She saw something in me that was there, it was hidden, but it had to be birthed. And through that adversity is where it was birthed. And in that moment, I remember I fell to the ground and I got in the fetal position, and I'm just gonna say what happened to me. I said, God, if you can hear me, if you're up there, you gotta tell me what to do, because I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go. What do I do? I'm 18, I'm tired and I'm broken, but I can't quit. And the reason that I fought is because Miss Ritchie said that I could do something great. See, sometimes in life, your presence is inspiration. If there was no Miss Ritchie, I would be dead. Do you understand what I'm telling you? I will be done. I would be in prison right now if I wasn't dead, guaranteed. But I will say I'll probably be dead because I probably would have blew my brains out. But in that moment, I asked God to help me. And I remember, as sure as it was yesterday, a voice says, get up. And I looked around and the voice says, get up. So I got up. That was July 28, 1986. I've been up ever since. And I didn't tell that story for you guys to feel sorry about me. Oh, poor Mark Anthony. It's not about that. I told you that story for you to understand that I'm just a kid who used to be one of your kids who had a horrific life, but I'm still here because of loving, caring adults who understood the power of connection, the power of belief, the power of resiliency, the power to keep pushing. So here I am. Never underestimate your power, folks. And because of that, I was able to do great things. This is me on top of Mount Whitney, 14,300 some odd feet. I never knew that I would be able to do anything like that. And I remember that as I'm standing on this mountain, I'm looking out the other way, I'm crying. And I asked myself this question. I said, how does a nappy-headed inner city black boy end up on top of a mountain in California? And as the wind blew, I could swear a voice says, if somebody told you, you could. Shifted my whole life. This is me right here in the crew, just kind of, with my crew. And all of these kids here are broken. Some of these kids are Head Start kids because we had conversations. Some of these kids were told they would never be anything. But here we were, 23 miles into the backcountry, 10,000 feet for 6 months, taking care of each other, building connections. Did we fight? We sure we did. Did we have great days all the time? No, we didn't, but we finished together as one team. I would climb mountains on my own, trying to climb mountains. I would go out on expeditions, thinking about the greater purpose of life. What am I going to do with my life? What am I going to be? Where will I be in 10 years? But I never dreamed anything like this. But as I would go around California in those mountains, I would remember Head Start. Not the lessons, I don't remember those, but I remember the feelings. I remember Miss Ritchie and what she would tell me, and it shifted my life. And then as I grew up, I went to college, became a wildlife biology major, went to Ohio University, and then before that, went to Hocking College, picked up a degree in wildlife, figured out I didn't want to chase Bambi through the woods, so I said, let me go to OU, study communication, and I started my speaking career, and that shifted my life. And to date, I've been able to work with celebrities, a little girl here a young lady from Blackie, she's doing great things right now. This is one of my most favorite pictures. This is my Dayton public school crew, some friends of mine, and that's where I got my start. And so, I love working with the Dayton teachers, and there's teachers all over, but Dayton has a special affinity in my heart. I'll tell you that. Yes, it does. And working with children. When I start working with children, especially the babies, like these are my babies. These are all my first graders. And I would go around to these schools and I would talk to these kids about love and about leadership. And all of a sudden they would just gravitate to me, especially the kids that had trouble, because I understood where they were, because I understood what it meant to be a difficult child and a child who struggled, because I was one of those children. So thus, I walked into this world not understanding what was going to happen, not understanding how many children that I would connect to, how many children I would inspire, but I dedicated my life to empowering children to be better, because I wanted to make the world a better place, because they told me that I wasn't going to make it. They said I'd be in prison. They said that I'd be dead. So I said, okay, I'm going to prove you wrong. What I'm going to do, I'm not going to get angry. I'm just going to continue to inspire. And so I started going all around the country, working with kids, inspiring kids, all types of kids, Black kids, white kids, kids with IEPs, you name it, I've done it. Working with all kids from rural areas. But what I love most about the children is that they give me permission to keep pushing. As I look at your organization, I know that all of you that are under the sound of my voice today, whether you're a classroom teacher, food service, transportation, clerical, whatever capacity, you're here to empower children to be better. And so I came across this quote as I started to wrap up here. I said this. Well, let me do this. Highly successful organizations pride themselves on being what I call purpose-driven. And it says this. It says purpose is not just a crucial differentiator. It is the strategic structure that pulls companies, or through what it is we do, through the worst of times. Companies should determine their purpose, a definitive statement about the difference you are trying to make in the world, and then craft their leadership, management, operational strategies, and tactics to further that purpose. Furthermore, a purpose-based approach simplifies many difficult decisions and makes an uncertain future easier to navigate. When the ash is clear from this economic Armageddon, or from this COVID Armageddon, the only organizations left standing will be the ones that actually stand for something. Without a purpose that improves people's lives and contributes to the greater good, organizations will struggle. Wall Street Journal, Roy M. Spence, in his book, "It's not what you sell, it's what you stand for." And the reason that, let me go back, I'm sorry about that. The reason I wanted to kind of come to this is because when I look at what it is you do, the essence of what it is you do, the sacrifice that you make every single day, you understand that the purpose of what it is you do is greater than any obstacle. Now, I don't remember word for word, but there was a gentleman that was on the video talking about how you continue to serve food to the children when other people are trying to figure it out. Somehow you guys figured a way to get it done, because you're not one of those organizations that says, you know what, we don't know what to do. But if you don't know what to do, you guys find a way to figure it out. That is called resiliency. That is called being a champion. That is called understanding your reason for being. And that's an amazing thing. And I benefited from that. Millions of children benefit from that. And as those children experience the Head Start experience, and it gets into the emotional DNA of their being, they're able to then transfer that information and that love and that feeling to other people. That's what it's all about. It's about setting the greatest example for our children. And I'm telling you, you have a unique way of doing that. And so if you doubt yourself, I'm asking you, no, I'm begging you, never doubt what it is you do, because you are amazing. You are amazing. So with that said, ladies and gentlemen, I want to start winding down just a little bit for time's sake. But I want you to understand this, that you weren't hired to maintain the status quo. You were hired to make a difference and make an impact. Don't ever, ever forget that. And the last thing that I'll kind of talk about here today, or should I say share with you, is this. I'm nothing special. I'm really not. And I know that there are people that are on this simulcast right now who know me. Don't know who you are, but you know me, because I've heard that there are people who know me. But anybody who knows me knows that I'm not perfect. And I'm nothing special. I just got lucky and so blessed to have people like you in my life that shifted my life to a whole state of consciousness. I'm not supposed to be doing this. I'm not supposed to be here, but here I am. So all the people who said you'll never be anything, all the people who said, oh, because of your skin color, oh, you grew up in the hood, your real daddy didn't, all these negative armchair theoreticians who said that kids like me can't make it. And there are those out there who believe that the children that we serve, oh, Head Start kids, they're not, oh, those kids are low poverty. all the things that people say, but yeah, we do it anyway because we understand the greater sense of purpose behind what it is that we do. Never forget the purpose. It's powerful. It's powerful. Last year, May 15th, I get a call from Miss Richie's daughter. And I get this call and she says, Mark Anthony, she says, I said, hey, how's it going? She says, hey, you have a minute? I said, sure. She says, can you sit down for a minute? I said, sure. So I sat down and I said, how's the Queen doing? Speaking of Miss Richie, and she says, that's the reason I'm calling. The Queen is not doing so well, Mark. She's in hospice now. I sat there for a minute and I said, Jane, tell me, what did you just say? She said, Mama's in hospice. You need to get here as soon as you can. I said, okay. And I said, I'll get there as soon as I can. So we hung up after we talked for a little bit. That was on May 15th. I couldn't go to 16th. I couldn't go to 17th. And I had something on the 18th that I had to do, but something told me, cancel it, get to Yellow Springs, get to the rest facility, get there as quick as you can. And so I talked to my wife and I canceled everything and I drove up, not knowing what I'm going to expect when I get there, but I get up here, I get up to Yellow Springs, and I walk into the facility and all three of her kids are there, her two daughters and her son. And Jean meets me and she says, you want to come in and see Mom? I says, yes. So I walk in and there she is, laying there in a semi-coma, as small as you could, smallest thing I've ever seen, just kind of dwindled down to almost nothing. And there I am standing. There I'm standing with this woman, right, that shifted my whole life. I'm trying to figure out, what do you say to a woman that changed everything? What do you say to a teacher that dedicated her life, who didn't start teaching until she was 40, because she was a missionary before that, who changed your whole life? What do you say? I grabbed her hand, I went down, I got close to her, and I started whispering to her. I said, Miss Richie, I said, it's Mark Anthony. I said, I love you. And I says, I'm here and I want to come and see you. Thank you for everything. I just poured my heart out to this woman as I whispered in her ear how much she meant to me, how she shifted my whole life. And I said, Miss Richie, I love you. I can't be Richie right now, but I promise you, I'll see you again. Safe travels home. I kissed her on her forehead and I was done. I had to walk out the room. Tears were coming down and I walked out. 5 minutes later, her daughter comes out and says, it's about that time, Mark Anthony. You ready? And I said, no, but I'm good. I'll be ready for her. So we walk back in and everybody's saying their goodbyes, and I'm the last person and said, Mark, going up. So I go up again and I get kind of close to her and everybody's in the room. So I grab her hand. I said, Miss Richie, it's Mark Anthony again. I says, I love you. I love you more than you'll ever know. I love you, I love you, I love you, and thank you. I went down and I hugged her ever so gently and I kissed her again and the tears were coming and everybody in the room was just done, right? So I'm standing there and I see her chest go up. It goes up. It goes down. It goes up. It goes down. Then it goes up. That was it. As I stood there watching this woman who shifted my life, her daughter Jean was beside herself. She's crying frantically, right? And she says to me, as she looks in my eyes, she says, Mark Anthony, she says, I want you to understand something. She says, you changed everything. You changed everything. I says, what do you mean? I didn't change anything. She changed my life. She says, you don't understand. I told Mommy that you were coming. I told Mommy just yesterday, I said, Mommy, I don't know when Mark Anthony's coming, but he's coming. I promise you, Mommy, I promise you. And as sure as I'm talking to you today, ladies and gentlemen, she looked in my face and she says, Mommy waited for you. She waited for you, Mark Anthony. What do you say to that, right? At the beginning of my young life, even though I was 8 years old, at the beginning of my life, she was there for me. And at her last days, we were connected again. It was the connection. That's the only thing that brought me back. It was the connection. And I vowed on that day that she transpired from this life to the next, that for the rest of my life, I would honor her. For the rest of my life, I would earn this thing called life. That I would earn the right to inhale and exhale from this day until the day that I die, because she gave me permission to breathe. And I will say this to you as we conclude this, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm sorry about being a crybaby, but it is what it is. Listen, that was my girl. Oh man, this woman right here just shifted everything. And I say this to you, and I want to share that story, not to sadden you, but to let you know that you have the power to shift lives. You have the power to help children reach their apex. You have the power to help families, to change the environments, to help families to reach their goals and dreams, thus in your mission and vision statement. How powerful is that? You are amazing. And I'll say this as I conclude. I want you to do something today that your future self will thank you for. Do something today that your future self will thank you for. And I'm going to ask you to do this, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to ask you to push just a little harder. I'm going to ask you to take this coronavirus that we're under right now and use it as a stepping stone to reach more families. If you got to call them, if you got to drive by with a mask on and just do a mask buy or whatever you want to, I don't care what you do, but continue to connect with the children that you've been given the blessing to serve. And if you do that, I promise you that we will continue to save lives. We will continue to enhance lives. We'll continue to help families become bigger and better. And more importantly, we will make the world a better place. And I'm going to conclude like this. You are amazing in everything that you do. I love you. I encourage you. And understand that in this family that we have, this is your kingdom. Let nothing from the outside come in to destroy it. And let nothing from the inside implode it. Okay? Push forward. Continue to move mountains, and I guarantee that we'll save children's lives, one life at a time. And as Miss Ritchie did for us, I'm going to do this for you. And if you're watching me right now, if you are a male, you are a king. And if you are a female, you are a queen. And I conclude by bowing before royalty. God bless you guys. Thank you so much. I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope this has touched your spirit. And so thank you so much. And that concludes my presentation. God bless you. And I wish you nothing but the best. God bless. All right, that concludes my presentation. So who's next? Take it away. Thank you, guys.